Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. We've got a great topic for you today with the longest title ever, so I'm going to do my best to paraphrase. Someone once said, if you want to hear a good story, just ask someone about an experience they had that they cannot explain. So, Reddit, regardless of your beliefs, what's your story? Please remember to like, share. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for the birthday wishes yesterday. I tell this story often on this godforsaken site, but you all are getting it again. My husband and I used to watch Ghost Adventurers together as a way to unwind at the end of the day. One time, we were watching them do an EVP session. Zach said hello, and a very clear child's voice answered back, "Hi," but the show didn't acknowledge it and moved on. Now, if you've ever seen the show, you know they'll latch onto anything as evidence, which made ignoring this piece strange. So we skipped back to watch the scene again, but this time it wasn't there. It wasn't in the show. It was in our house. We've never been able to explain it. Lost a full 3 hours in over the course of what should have been about 30 minutes. Me and my friends were camping at a recreational area that was about 10 minutes from the nearest town. We ran out of hot dogs and buns, so we all pretty were starving. Me and two other friends elected to drive down to the town and then drive back. A quick 30-minute drive that would have had us happily around the campfire in no time. We pile in, drive down, grab exactly what we need, and head back. As soon as we get to camp, we're being yelled at by our friends, claiming that we were gone for almost 3 to 4 hours, and that they would have starved to death had we not arrived. We were confused, as we had practically rushed to and from the grocery store with the supplies. Hell, the hot dogs still felt like they were just barely taken out of the fridge. Most confusing moment of our lives. When I was 13ish, my parents had gone out for the night while my sister and I stayed at home. We were in our basement because of the way the house was set up. You could hear our garage door open from the basement. We heard the garage door open and close. We heard my parents come through the door into our kitchen, but we thought nothing of it. Then about 5 minutes later, we heard the same chain of auditory events. My sister and I looked at each other, horribly confused. Soon after, our dad yelled down the stairs, "Hey kids, we're home." We went up and asked if they had come in 5 minutes ago, and they said they hadn't. I told them what happened, and all four of us rummaged through every room at the house because we were afraid someone was hiding somewhere. We never found anything, or anyone. If it had just been me, I might have assumed that I just manufactured the noise in my head. But the fact that my sister heard it too makes me wonder what happened. I suppose someone could have come in our house and then left, but our doors were locked. Maybe they picked the lock, but I have no clue why someone would pick a lock, wander in for seconds, and then leave. The other thing is that we heard the footsteps enter, but never leave. Maybe the parents came home early. Maybe someone did break into your house, but then when the parents came home, the intruder ran out of the house. Maybe. Or, totally ghost. This is a bit of a long story, but I'll try to keep it short. Both of my parents had passed away, my dad quite recent to the time this happened, and I really wanted a sign that he was still around. One night I laid in bed, closed my eyes, and asked for a sign from him that couldn't be interpreted as something else. The next day I took the kids to school and drove home with my second son, who was unwell. As we pulled into the driveway, we heard our burglar alarm going off. My first thought was it had been accidentally activated, so I ran into the house to switch it off with the keypad. Despite entering the code number several times, the ringing continued, so I removed the plug that powered it, still ringing. I called the company from outside the house as the noise was deafening, and they explained how to turn it off from its main power source. The ringing didn't stop. The lady on the phone said she'd send an alarm engineer over, and I sat outside in our van. Suddenly I remembered what I had said before I fell asleep, and to myself said something like, "Dad, is that you?" The ringing stopped. Before long, the expert arrived and he checked the alarm. No problems. He asked where the sound came from, and I said the kitchen ceiling. He says, "That's odd. That's not where you should hear the alarm." So I asked him to let me hear what the alarm sounded like. It was a totally different sound to what I had heard. I'm convinced it was my dad. Thanks, Dad. This happened when I was in a camp at primary school in either 2003 or 4. It was about 12 or 13 back then. We were playing the game Spotlight, which you can only play at night in a huge forest-type area on the campsite. Spotlight is basically like hide and seek, where one player is designated the seeker who was given a torch or flashlight, and the rest of the kids get up to 30 or 40 seconds to hide somewhere in the dark until the seeker goes to find said kids and uses the torch or flashlights to seek them out. Whoever gets spotted has to join the seeker to help find the others. Anyway, I was chosen as the seeker, and I was waiting at the entrance to the forest with my back turned while all the kids ran in various areas in the forest to hide. There were a lot of thick trees and dense bushes and shrubbery, so it was a perfect spot to hide for this particular game. By the time I called time at 40 seconds and flicked my torch on to go search, it was dead silent. No movement, nothing. Liking a challenge, I headed into the forest to start my seeking, waiting for the sound of a rustle, any chatter, laughter, or footsteps to give away a location of someone. Again, there was just silence. It felt eerie, but forests do at night, I reasoned, so I kept shining my torch in different places that were big enough to hide a person, and suddenly the beam of the torchlight picked up on a shadow hiding in this old hut-type thing. Excited, I found someone. I flashed my light into the hut, about to yell that I had caught them, when, inexplicably, the torch suddenly died. Without a light, this game was pointless, so I figured I would have to run back to camp and ask the supervising teacher for new batteries. Then the light began to flicker back on again, and I saw the same shadow begin to creep from the hut, so I quickly redirected the torch back onto my quarry. Then, the failed again. I was about to shout out to the others that the game was on pause so I could go back to camp when I felt something hard knock into me and a breathy voice said in my ear, "You got me." I jumped backwards in fright, fell so hard I stumbled backwards, and I screamed blue murder as I sprinted all the way back to camp like an Olympian being chased by fire ants. The rest of my class were already back at camp, confused at where I'd been all that time, thinking I was pulling a prank on them. Turns out, I'd been gone over 15 minutes when it honestly felt like a few moments, albeit very frightening moments, and the kids gave up and went back to camp. I told them I thought they were doing the same thing to me and demanded to know who was hiding in the hut. I didn't want to confess that they had scared the living shoes off of me because I was trying to act cool and brave, but I was really shaken. All the kids were accounted for, so whoever creeped up on me had to have run very fast ahead of me to get back before me. It didn't make sense. The kids seemed genuinely confused at what happened and disappointed the game ended dismally, so I believe they weren't responsible. In the end, to save face, I just laughed it off, but when the kids suggested playing again, I bailed out, saying I didn't feel like it anymore. Also, I was shit scared, but didn't want to admit it. The kids ended up playing without me, and they didn't report anything strange except one of the kids thought they had spotted more than one person in a dense, hedge. But when they shined the torchlight, there was only one kid in there. The kid hiding swore someone else was in the hedge too, as they felt someone brush against them, and felt someone breathing next to them. Very unsettling to say the least. It confirmed that what I experienced wasn't an isolated incident, and more chillingly, that it wasn't a prank being pulled by any of my classmates. Also, the torch kept cutting out during that game too, but there were no issues with it for the rest of the camp. I still get shivers thinking about that game and lack of rational explanation. I was in high school and had gotten an F on my report card. I was so scared to tell my mom. Back then, report cards were just mailed home. So I waited all day for the mail to come and make sure I got my report card before anyone else could. I used a pen and carefully tried to change the F to a B. I know. My older brother came home and saw the report card, said the B looks weird. He asked me if I had changed it. I said no very defensively. He said, "Swear on our Nana's grandmother's grave?" We were all extremely close to her. She was the matriarch of the family. Well, of course, being a stupid teenager, I swore on my Nana's grave knowing I was a damned liar. My brother took his thumb and ran it over the B, and the pen smeared. My brother screamed at me that I was a piece of shit and that he was telling Mom. I ran into my room crying hysterically, mostly because I felt like shit that I had sworn on my grandmother's grave. As I'm in my room sobbing uncontrollably, I start saying out loud, "Nana, please forgive me, I'm so sorry." Right after that, the light in my room turned on by itself. I had one of those floor lamps that had a knob you had to turn, and the knob would always make a click noise when you turned it on, and you could control the brightness. I stopped crying and just sat there in awe. I had no explanation for how the light clicked on, but I felt a sense of peace in that moment. This is a great cautionary tale on making one mistake or telling one lie and how it can compound and make it worse. I'm glad the lesson was quick, but be honest, and things might not be as bad as they seem. When I was young, I had a strange love of Bollywood musicals, even though I don't speak the languages in the movies. I used to watch one every Saturday, so I'd seen a lot of them. When my grandfather died years later, I had a dream where I was having a conversation with my family like any normal day, and I noticed my grandfather standing in the corner of the room, just kind of hanging out, but for some reason the dream took on an eerie vibe, like my mind knew he shouldn't be there. And the song Main Yahan Hoon was in the background. If you look up the lyrics, they translate to, I'm the only one in your thoughts now. I'm in all the answers, and in the questions too. I live in every dream of yours. I'm in the light in your eyes. You see me wherever you look. I'm here. I'm here. Very weird, because I would not associate my grandfather with Bollywood or that song. My brain could have chosen any song I had heard, yet it chose the one with the creepiest lyrics. Thanks, brain. One normal morning, my teenage daughters and I were getting ready for school and work with the usual buzz of 3 women grooming and prepping for the day. Youngest daughter comes flying out of her room in furious frustration. Who took my purple beanie and then put it back? Cue confused and defended reactions from her, sisters, and I. No one had been anywhere near your room. We've both been in the bathroom doing our hair and makeup. What's going on? My youngest basically accused us of taking her beanie after she left it on her backpack. Then, after she tore her room apart trying to find it, turned around and it was on her bed neatly folded. I said, you just misplaced it or misremembered where you left it, no biggie. With great emotion and conviction, she insisted that was not what happened, and we should just admit we were messing with her. Well, her sister and I were very dismissive because we knew full well we'd both been in the bathroom chatting for the last 30 minutes doing our girly stuff. For sure, she just forgot that she put it on her bed. On the drive to school half an hour later, she said she had calmed down and asked us again if we'd moved it. I was getting a little frustrated and said so. We didn't move it. We didn't go near your room. Why is that so hard to believe? Why is it impossible that you'd not just misremembered? She gave the withering look only a 15-year-old girl can give and said archly, with a steely voice, when have I ever folded anything, Mom? Let alone my beanie. She got me there, but whatever, things happen. The mystery was not resolved, and to be honest, her sister and I paid very little attention to this drama that seemed so out of place and overacted. A few days later, every night when I hop into bed, I take out my pearl and diamond drop earrings and place them under one of my pillows. Always the same one, in exactly the same place. Have done it for years and years and years. There are up to 12 pillows on my bed of varying sizes. I love sleeping with lots of pillows. So, this particular night I jump into bed, take off my earrings, and slide them under the pillow like I always do. At 6 a.m. I wake, check my phone, then slide my hand under the pillow to put on my earrings. No earrings. I think they've fallen behind the bed, so I get up, pull out the bed, not there. I strip the bed. I strip the linen of the pillows. I take the doona out of the cover. I take the mattress cover off. I get on my hands and knees and cover the floor. No earrings. I'm frantic and confused. The girls are up and about by now, so I ask them, did someone take my earrings? Sleepy, dismissive denials as they went about their routines. I'm almost in tears and insist someone had moved them. They insist they have no idea what I'm on about. So I remake the bed, shaking everything out and feeling every nook and cranny in the room. I'm devastated. These earrings were so special to me and I just can't believe they've simply disappeared. I spend the day confused and upset. I get home, cook dinner, have a bath, etc., etc. It's now bedtime, and I jump into bed. I'm taking and talking myself down from the ledge, saying to myself as I sit there, how could they have moved when I put them exactly where I always do? As I'm saying this to myself, I slide my hand under the pillow I always put them under, and there they were. Exactly where I always put them. I'm gobsmacked and shook. I fly out of bed and go straight to the girls. Who took my earrings and put them back? My eldest said she had no idea, and can I please be quiet? She was almost asleep. Didn't care enough to be interested. My youngest, she says to me, well, now you know what happened to my beanie. Do you believe me now? I just have no explanation at all. At all. Thank God it was a shared experience with my youngest daughter because no one else believes or even understands just how impossible these two events were. I cannot explain it. In a time of deep emotional distress in my life, I wandered into a church. I was feeling helpless and hopeless and couldn't think of anywhere else to go. I'm an agnostic, so church isn't exactly my comfort zone, but at the time I worked downtown and there's this really beautiful ancient Catholic church down there. I was pregnant and I'd had an appointment that day and they said I was going to have an amniocentesis and test done. I was terrified and felt very, very lost. I was just wandering around downtown, sad as hell, trying to think of what to do. And I found myself outside the church, so I went in. I wandered up towards the front and slid pretty far down to the end, trying to have some privacy as I just poured myself out. I tucked myself in the end of this pew and cried and cried. I don't remember any praying, no clear thoughts, just grief and fear for my baby that manifested as this deep, mournful crying. And then, this incredible warmth washed over me. It literally felt like someone poured warm water over me, starting at the top of my head. I remember being startled by the sensation. It flowed over my entire body. I calmed down almost immediately. My mind cleared, and I felt confident that whatever happened, it was going to be okay. And it was. That was 25 years ago, and the baby is now a very happy, healthy, grown man. I'm still not religious, but something comforted me that day, and whatever it was, I can't explain it, but it was real. And I'm grateful. I'm a bit of a skeptic when it comes to supernatural explanations for things, but here's my story. I was vacationing in the Philippines a little while ago visiting family. The hotel room that I, my two sisters, and my cousin shared only had a king-size bed, so I slept on the floor on a mattress underneath a window. The room was on the ground floor, and window opened up to a forested walkway between rooms. I woke up while it was still dark and looked up at the nightstand to check the time, 3 a.m. Then, outside the window, I heard what sounded like children laughing and playing. My first thought was, who the hell is letting their kids play outside at 3 a.m.? There were plenty of foreigners staying at the resort. I figured they must have been jet-lagged, but a little voice in my head told me, those aren't the voices of children. As I considered the thought, a presence washed over me from under the bed. It was like a crushing weight. A lot like sleep paralysis, but it was the first time I ever experienced it, so I didn't think it at the time. Terrified, I prayed for what felt like 5 minutes until the weight went away. Then I waited for sunrise to fall back asleep. I could call it sleep paralysis, but it was different in that I wasn't paralyzed. As I woke up or fell asleep, like the subsequent times I experienced the sensation, I woke up, sat up, looked around, then experienced it. But it could have just been some other, similar physical issue plus an auditory hallucination for whatever reason. I spoke to my mom about it in the morning. She said something odd also happened to her that night. She was visited by people she knew who had passed away. There's something about the old country, she told me. Some sort of spiritual heaviness.